Hello, everybody. This is Jimmy. You're reading with Jimmy. You're reading Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, and we're analyzing pages 88 to 89. We left off with the Queen asking who the gardeners were as they were lying on their face and their backs were the same pattern. And Alice realizing that they are a pack of cards, and she lost her fear. So, could not tell whether they were gardeners. We read this the last time because I gave you the hint that she couldn't tell who they were. And Alice says, "How should I know who they are?" said Alice, surprised at her own courage. Surprised at her own courage. It's no business of mine. She rocks, this girl now, huh? The Queen turned crimson with fury. She turns crimson with fury after Alice talks. And after glaring at Alice for a moment like a wild beast, she began screaming, "Off with her head! Off with..." Interruption. "Nonsense," says Alice very loudly and decidedly. And the Queen was silent. Something is happening to Alice. Something has happened to Alice. She's gotten into the game. She's gotten into the rhythm of Wonderland. She is not taking it sitting down anymore. She's challenged. She shuts the Queen down because that's the Queen's response to everything. You're going to find out. Off with her head. Off with everybody's head. She wants to chop everybody's heads off. But Alice says, "No, you don't talk to me like that." The king laid his hand upon her arm and timidly, look who's timid now, ladies and gentlemen. The king. He's the king. You know anything about kings? Have you ever looked at any or read anything about kings? Kings are not timid. Ever. A king is never timid because he's the king. He's the king. So you do what the king says or you go to prison, you go to the tower. But he's timid now. He's the one who's timid, not Alice. "Consider, my dear, she's only a child." So he says it to his wife. "Consider, my dear, she is only a child." So he's making an excuse and defending Alice's outburst because he doesn't, the Queen wants to cut her head off. She's silent. She's furious. She's turning red. And all of a sudden the king says, timidly, "Oh, she's just a kid." The Queen turned angrily away from him and said to the knave, "Turn them over." Who's them? Those are the three gardeners laying down, right? Because she doesn't know if they're children, if they're courtiers, right? "Turn them over." Let's see who these are. The knave did so very carefully with one foot. Imagine, use your imagination, ladies and gentlemen. Use your imagination. So the knave of hearts is kicking them over with one foot. He's flipping these cards over with one foot because he himself is a card, right? So imagine their hands and their feet coming out of their four corners, and he's using his foot to kick over the card carefully. "Get up," said the Queen in a shrill, loud voice. And the three gardeners instantly jumped up, and they began bowing to the king and queen, the royal children and everybody else. They're just bowing the heck out of it. They're just bowing. "Leave off that," screamed the Queen. "You make me giddy." What's giddy? Do you know what giddy is? Giddy is like playful, laughful. "You make me giddy. Stop that. Stop bowing." And then turning to the rose tree, she went on, "What have you been doing here?" "Uh-oh." "May it please your majesty," said Tu, in a very humble tone. Humble, he's humble. "May it please your majesty," going down on one knee as he spoke. "We were trying..." "I see," said the Queen, who had meanwhile been examining the roses. "Off with their heads." And the procession moved on. And three of the soldiers remained behind to execute the unfortunate gardeners, who ran to Alice for protection. Ladies and gentlemen, there's a profound change taking place. A profound change. Alice is now she's looked to for protection from these three, cards that are going to have their heads chopped off. Alice she says this, you shan't be beheaded. You won't be beheaded. And she put them in a large flower pot that stood near. The three soldiers wandered around for a minute or two looking for them, and then they quietly marched off after the others. So she hides the gardeners. She protects them. Are their heads off? Shouted the queen. Their heads are gone, if it please your majesty, the soldiers shouted in reply. That's right, shouted the queen. Can you play croquet? The soldiers were silent and looked at Alice, as the question was evidently meant for her. Yes, shouted Alice. Well, come on then, roared the queen. The queen shouts and roars. She doesn't talk. She shouts and roars. Then come on. And Alice joined the procession, wondering very much what will happen next. She's not afraid. She's wondering what's happened. She's going with the cards to play croquet, right? Croquet. It's a very fine day, said a timid voice to her side. Uh-oh, who's this? She was walking by the white rabbit, who was peeping anxiously into her face. What does he say to her? It's a very fine day. Isn't that how you start conversation? It's a beautiful day outside. So the white rabbit is now peeping into her face. Remember, Alice was peeping into her sister's book when all this started. Very, said Alice. Where's the Duchess? Shh, hush, hush, said the rabbit in a low, hurried tone. He looked anxiously over his shoulder as he spoke. Oh, who's listening to me? And then raised himself up on tiptoe, put his mouth close to her ear, and whispered, She's under sentence of execution. What for? Said Alice. Did you say, what a pity? The rabbit asked. No, I didn't. I don't think it's at all a pity. I said, what for? Well, she boxed the queen's ears. You know, that's the saying in the old saying, I'm going to box your ears. My mother used to say, I'm going to box your ears, Jimmy. I'm going to box them. That means she's going to smack them around. Alice gave a little scream of laughter. She's laughing after she hears the white rabbit say that the Duchess boxed the queen's ears. Hush, said the rabbit, whispered in a frightened tone. The queen will hear you. And you came rather late, and the queen said, Get to your places, shouted the queen in a voice of thunder. Get to your places. And the people began running in all directions, tumbling up against each other. Chaos. However, they got settled down, and in a minute or two, the game began. What happened to those three gardeners who were in the pot? We'll find out. Alice thought she had never seen such a curious croquet ground in her life. It was all ridges and furrows, and the croquet balls were live hedgehogs, and the mallets live. We're going to stop there. We're going to find out what those mallets are. So they're playing with live tools. The croquets are mallets, that croquet balls are hedgehogs, and there's ridges and furrows, up and down, ridges and furrows. It's not a flat, if you've ever known anything about croquet, you're usually playing it on a flat surface, right? So now this is going to be a different type of croquet game. You can tell. You don't have to be a genius, but you should know what croquet is. We're going to talk about that, what that is, next chapter. Okay. It's an interesting thing now because we've seen Alice develop into this protectress. She's protecting. She protects now. She's not afraid to speak up. She has courage, right? She's talking to the rabbit who started it all, and now he's telling her, shh, quiet. Don't tick off the queen. Don't get her angry. You're reading with Jimmy. This is chapter 8, the Queen's Croquet Game. Queen's Croquet Ground. And this is Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. Jimmy at readingwithjimmy.com. Jimmy at readingwithjimmy.com is my email. Look forward to hearing from you. And I'll see you shortly for the next couple of page analysis.